Okay, bonsoir tout le monde. Welcome everyone to the regular Municipal Council meeting of the City of Westmount for Monday, July 17th, 2023. Bienvenue tout le monde aux séances ordinaires du Conseil municipal de la Ville de Westmount pour lundi le 17 juillet 2023. We are going to start with some updates, but I will begin tonight. Cela commence à devenir une habitude, malheureusement. Mais j'aimerais dire juste quelques mots en ce début de séance au sujet des négociations avec le renouvellement de conventions collectives des cols bleus de notre ville. The city's blue-collar workers are still on strike, and negotiations with the syndicat des cols bleus regroupés de Montréal, section locale 301, are ongoing. While we have made some progress in recent weeks, there are still areas of disagreement, particularly regarding certain monetary compensations. To avoid undermining the negotiation process, I won't provide any further details about the content of our latest offers. I will simply say that our offer is generous and would enable our blue-collar workers to be among the highest paid in the metropolitan area. I also want to thank the residents for their patience. I know that the noise pollution across the city caused by the picketing and the impact of the strike on certain services is affecting many of us. I'm sorry about that. And I believe that the vast majority of Westmounters respect the blue collars' right to strike. However, some of the union's pressure tactics lately could erode the public's sympathy and confidence in the city's blue collar workers. This situation will not last forever. Residents and city employees meet and interact daily. We are a community. Therefore, we must continue to have and maintain a relationship that is based on trust and respect. We will continue to negotiate, and at the same time, we will do everything we can to limit the impact of the strike on the services to the public as much as possible. With the exception of bulky items and garden waste, all other waste collection will continue as usual. So that's garbage, recycling, and composting. And as always, but particularly in this difficult time, the cooperation of all residents to keep our city clean is essential. So please do not leave your garden waste bags at the curb or in the parks. We've seen a lot of people piling up garden waste bags, in particular in Murray Hill Park along Westmount Avenue. We would encourage you, if you have a contractor, to bring those bags to ask your contractors to bring them to the Belvedere Road Depot. They are all all the contractors who work in the city of Westmount are very familiar with where the Belvedere Depot is. It's open from Monday to Friday mornings from 7:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. And I would like to urge everyone to help to maintain our green spaces clean. We want to enjoy our beautiful parks during the summer, so please pick up your trash. And if you come across an overflowing bin, please do not continue to add more garbage to this bin. Take it home with you or bring it to another bin. We had a lot of complaints yesterday. I just want to acknowledge some of the complaints that we had yesterday after what I believe is a rugby tournament in Murray Hill Park, where it was a complete disgrace what was left in the park. That has been addressed with the people that we believe left the waste there, and it was left to our management team to go and pick that up and clean that up to make sure it's a safe place. We have camps that are in there. We have people that are exercising in there, walking, enjoying their parks. It is not your garbage bin. And it's infuriating to see people treat our parks like that. So I would really ask residents to help us cooperate with that. And if you see someone doing it, we don't expect you to be the police, but you can certainly let us know, and we will take care of that. So I just want to thank everybody for their patience with this. It's been difficult. I know last week caused a lot of noise in certain of the commercial sectors and a lot of our small businesses that have been working really, really hard to serve our residents. Our residents were affected by that, and we hope to come to a conclusion soon. So I think we have a few updates from down here. Councillor Aronson, you had a short update?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick reminder that the merchants in Victoria Village will be having their annual sidewalk sale and street festival this coming weekend. This has been moved from its original date last month. It promises to be a very good time, and so we encourage local residents to come on out, enjoy everything that the Merchants Association has prepared for you, including the music of Gary White and games and fun for all. Additionally, a quick welcome to our Green Patrol, who are coming out. These are our summer students who are working with the City of Westmount as part of our Green Patrol to raise positive awareness amongst residents about the best practices for recycling and for composting. If you see them out and about, please do stop and say hello. They've got a lot of interesting information for you about how you can contribute to improving our environment here in the City of Westmount. And they will be coming around to double check how we're doing on making sure our composting and our recycling is done properly to reduce contamination and to let you know how you're doing. You may receive a door hanger, a little report card letting you know how well you're doing on recycling and composting. So look forward to that. It's coming this summer. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gallery?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have just two quick updates. I just want to let residents and citizens know that due to an excess of flowers that unfortunately were not able to be planted because of the blue collar strike, we are now offering them to our residents. It's for today, and which is over, but there's still an opportunity tomorrow between 8 a.m. and 11 at the Belvedere Depot, and the information's on the website. And I also just want to encourage residents to take advantage of all our leisure classes that are in Westmount Park, and remind everyone that the farmers market is ongoing, and all the information's on the website, and please go and visit it all. It's a huge success, and it's alternating locations between the Victoria Village and the Prince Albert Square and Green Avenue. Thanks.
Councillor Peart?
Thank you, Madame la Mairesse. Just a quick update to advise our residents that on this Wednesday, the 19th, and the 20th of July, from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., we will be holding the registry for the bylaw 1601, which is the bylaw to further amend zoning bylaw 1303, and that pertains to the medical clinics and the doctor's offices, particularly in the Victoria Village area. The full details are on our website. You can consult them there. The details of the threshold that will be needed to take this to the next step of a potential referendum are detailed there as well.
Thank you. And that time frame is all prescribed in the law. There's no wiggle room on that time frame. So that's 45 days from
45 days from the time that we had passed that resolution here in this room. So that, as the mayor says, is prescribed by law, and that date, we cannot go further than that date.
Yeah.
So originally it was on the Wednesday, and just to facilitate things, we added an additional day to give people the opportunity to sign the register.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shammy, I don't think you have an update. Councillor Rue always has an update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. But before I get to library and events, just to further what you were saying about the brown gardening residue bags that are being left all over the place, a lot around Murray Park, and it's an issue in District 2. I went myself a couple of weeks ago to bring my own bags. I just want to let people know it's super easy. It's clean. You back up on Belvedere, open your trunk, put it out, and the city is going to look a lot better, and it's really not a big deal. So for what's going on at the library and at events, always a lot going on in the summer. So there's the summer concerts in Westmount Park on Sundays at 2 p.m. So it's near the lagoon. You bring your chair and your blanket, unless it's raining, of course, then it's canceled. But weather permitting, on July 23rd, there's Apéro Trio, which is jazz. On July 30th, there's going to be PMR SKA Collective. On August 6th, Backwater Township, which is jazz. There's Shakespeare in the Park, as we have it every year, and that's always very popular. So we've got 4 representations of Cymberline, will take place in Westmount Park at 7 p.m. So there's one show this Thursday, July 20th, one on Friday, July 21st, one on Saturday, August 5th, and one last one on Sunday, August 6th. There's the Summer Film Club, so that's at Victoria Hall at 2 p.m. The next one is tomorrow, My Old School, on July 25th, I Love You Again. There's a summer group exhibition at the gallery at Victoria Hall showcasing the works of 6 Westmount artists. It's on until Saturday, August 19th, so I encourage you to go. And finally, there's the TD Summer Reading Program Story Walk. So it's for all ages. You stroll through Westmount Park to discover this year's Story Walk book, which is Treasure by Mireille Messier and Irene Luxemburger. Also, I often tell you that I just give you the major highlights and that there's a lot more going on, but I've never thought of encouraging residents to get, it's not officially a subscription, but there is a newsletter that comes out from the library and events. So you can either go to the desk at the library and ask to be put on the list, or vous pouvez aller sur le site web de la bibliothèque et dans le coin en bas à droite, il y a un petit onglet qui c'est écrit newsletter. Alors vous avez juste à cliquer là-dessus et vous abonner et vous allez recevoir tous les détails régulièrement. Alors, bon été.
Thank you very much, Councillor Roux. Councillor D'Amico, any updates today? Okay. So we will begin with our first question period. On va commencer avec les questions ici en la salle parce que je pense qu'on a d'autres questions qui étaient envoyées en ligne, which we'll do the online questions after the questions that are coming from those who are here in attendance.
Bonsoir, Marielle Audet-Wertheimer, avenue Somerville. J'aimerais savoir pourquoi la Ville n'a pas fait et ne fait pas une analyse détaillée des implications du changement de règlement qui permettra l'ouverture des cliniques médicales dans le village Victoria. Lors d'une réunion précédente, il a été dit que 4 ou 5 conseillers habitent dans le village. Cependant, aucun ne réside dans notre secteur qui sera le plus directement impacté par ces changements puisque nous sommes une des seules zones, sinon la seule, sans stationnement privé ou n'ayant pas une limite de temps de stationnement d'1 heure comme pour les rues, un bon nombre de rues au nord de Sherbrooke, près de Clermont. Ce qui n'est certainement pas propice pour garer une voiture quand on n'a qu'1 heure si on a une visite chez le médecin dont on ne sait pas la durée. Il apparaît que les membres du Conseil semblent fortement en faveur du changement. Ils ne connaissent pas ou préfèrent ignorer la situation de la circulation et les problèmes de stationnement que nous vivons au quotidien. Comme il n'y a pas beaucoup de supervision due au manque d'agents, à ce que dit notre conseillère, et que la tolérance est devenue très grande, c'est souvent le chaos. Par exemple, les permis verts, qui nominalement n'étaient que pour 4 heures, sont maintenant tolérés pour toute la journée et même la nuit. Et ce, nous les résidents du secteur, nous l'observons régulièrement, au point où nous demandons pourquoi nous payons pour un permis rouge. Et quant à nous faire croire que nous aurons des vignettes bleues, comme dans certaines autres zones, c'est tout à fait utopique, car les marchands, qui semblent avoir plus de respect de la ville que les résidents, s'y opposeront fortement, malgré ce qu'en dit leur représentante, qui a d'ailleurs affirmé dans le passé, lorsque conseillère municipale, à un de nos voisins, que ce n'était pas facilement faisable. De plus, pourquoi le Conseil profite-t-il de la saison estivale pour pousser son projet de façon précipitée alors que bon nombre de résidents sont absents? Et pourquoi la Ville ne fait-elle pas une analyse complète de la situation en impliquant résidents et marchands, ce qui serait certainement plus démocratique et moins biaisé? Merci.
Merci beaucoup pour votre question. Et comme vous savez, comme M. Peart a annoncé au début de la réunion, que c'est prescrit dans la loi, que c'est 45 jours. On n'a pas de choix pour ça. On ne peut pas avoir un changement sur ça. Donc, on est vraiment aux limites. La limite, c'est 45 jours. Donc, on est vraiment aux limites. Le conseiller Peart, est-ce que vous avez d'autres commentaires sur ça?
Mais sur la question de la raison pour laquelle on a suivi cette démarche, c'est tout à fait en réponse de la demande de la communauté. Je pense que dans l'année 2019, on avait fait un sondage par rapport à cette question ici, puis je pense que le numéro, c'est 85 peut-être? 83-85% de la population, ils ont annoncé une préférence d'avoir l'accès aux aux médecins dans le quartier.
Oui, bien sûr, ça je peux comprendre. Mais d'autre part, ça impacte beaucoup certains résidents. Les gens qui habitent sur la colline en haut, ou les gens qui habitent même dans votre secteur, où il y a des stationnements, ça ne les concerne pas que nous, on ait des problèmes. Mais nous, on le vit au jour le jour. Alors, vous dites qu'on ne peut pas changer, là, c'est dans les règlements, mais la démarche aurait pu être commencée plus tard, en septembre, ou même plus tôt dans l'année, que maintenant, où on arrive on dirait que c'est planifié de sorte que ça arrive durant l'été, les gens sont en vacances. Comment voulez-vous qu'on obtienne 181 signatures, même si c'est 2 jours parce qu'il y a eu une erreur par le city clerk? Écoutez, nous, on est assez réaliste pour voir que ce sera complètement impossible. Parce que les gens de certains secteurs qui ont signé une pétition ne vont pas aller signer le registre. Parce qu'ils sont... Pour eux, ils veulent justement avoir les cliniques. Alors,
Je pense que beaucoup de monde veut que nos édifices sont pas vides. Ça, c'est une chose et l'autre chose, il y a beaucoup de gens de Westmount qui ont dit qu'on a fermé, quand les cliniques médicales du Hillside ont fermé, ces médecins ont sorti du Westmount à cause de ces règlements. Je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de monde qui pense que ça, c'est un problème. Le règlement était en place parce qu'il y avait un problème avec la planification de l'hôpital, de la MUHC. Mais le problème n'existe pas maintenant. Ça fait 10 ans que l'hôpital est là. Donc, tous ces médecins qui n'avaient pas des bureaux, on a des bureaux maintenant. Ça fait 10 ans que l'hôpital est là. Donc, je le sais qu'il y a un problème de stationnement pour certaines places, comme vous habitez sur Somerville. Je sais que c'est une inquiétude pour vous, mais on garde ça comme dans le secteur total. Donc, est-ce que vous avez d'autres commentaires sur ça? Non? OK. Et puis, on n'a pas reçu beaucoup on n'a pas beaucoup de feedback des citoyens sur ce dossier.
Les signatures que nous, on a présentées de notre pétition, il y avait quand même un bon nombre. Tous les gens de notre secteur qui ont été approchés sont tous contre, parce que nous vivons avec cette situation-là.
OK, donc on va essayer de trouver d'autres solutions pour ça. La prochaine question, s'il vous plaît. Next question, please.
Well, this will be a little bit of a continuation on the same theme.
Sorry, you have to state your name and your
My name
your
is
address.
Michael Wertheimer. I'm the other part of 91 Somerville Avenue. I have been here before, and I've spoken on a similar theme. So this morning I discovered an apparent error on the part of the city clerk's office, which incited me to send the following message labeled most urgent. I hear from one of the councillors that this is apparently not an accident, but something that may have been planned. So my message was...
So no, are you saying that this was a deliberate mistake?
No,
and that somebody did this
I'm
on
saying
purpose?
that it's a mistake that has been perceived, like from myself, to be a mistake, and that needs correction. So
Okay,
what I
so
said...
and I think what we have explained is that the correction is that we will have 2 days instead of 1 day.
Well, but
I
nobody
would be very
knows
careful
this.
with any accusations that we have done something.
The only people who know this are the ones who have heard from Councillor Peart this evening, and possibly some who may have consulted documents that may be on the web since this morning. So what I said is, Monsieur Ferland, you have published 2 contradictory notices for the register, one for the 19th, the other for the 20th. See attached. I made copies of both, and I underlined the dates. This must lead to massive confusion among concerned Westmounters, and I have verified that everybody I've spoken to and corresponded with is massively confused, and we urge you to take corrective action immediately. Sincerely, Michael. Regrettably, this did not lead to a rapid reply, one I might have expected, along with the explanation and mention of corrective action. So under these current precise circumstances, I find this deeply troubling. I still find it deeply troubling as we speak, even though I'm slightly more informed. Now, coming to the register itself, I find the process severely flawed for numerous reasons, perhaps even too numerous to detail here for lack of time. But let me at least mention two. Number one, Bylaw 1456 of 2014 was enacted to, I quote, preempt parking/traffic congestion issues in light of the MUHC establishment, which was still a hot file at that time. Counter to city claims, those have not diminished, but rather augmented in the intervening 9 years. A serious study to shed light on this should be an urgent prerequisite to any further action. Please note my words. Item number 2, quoting from the official notice referenced above, or two of them for the 19th or 20th, the concerned sector is comprised of the following zones. I won't list them, but there's 9 of them, including ours, which is R3 2701. Anyone familiar, and this is a bit of a repeat of what my wife just said, anyone familiar with the extended Victoria Village will realize that these various zones differ greatly among themselves, specifically regarding parking. As a resident of Somerville Avenue in zone, as I said, R3 2701, we are obliged to park my single vehicle on the street, unlike other large residential zones, R3 1601 and R3 2901, which generally have their own private parking aprons and for whom this whole parking issue is let's say, a non-issue. Therefore, I find this process extremely punitive to us, as my wife does, and quite undemocratic. Furthermore, holding this register on such extremely short notice, the 11th of July issue of the Independent gave 2 dates that I'm quoting now because I memorized this, that it would probably have been announced on the 18th and that the actual register would take place on the 26th. Well, many people, including those who are away on vacation, probably pay a lot of credence to what is said in the Independent. But that's just an aside. So furthermore, holding this register on such extremely short notice and during peak holiday absentee season, this smacks a little bit of deliberate bias that favors the outcome that obviously is desired by this particular council. And I think I speak from a number of observations which lead to that impression, even though I don't have any really serious direct proof. In view of all the above arguments, I most strongly request that the register situation be submitted to the necessary corrective actions and clarification to the residents of all affected zones. Since the Independent is not being published for 3 weeks, the registry announcement should be postponed for 1 month so that all residents can be properly notified. And by the way, were all affected residents officially notified or only those who are on the Westmount mailing list?
So does that conclude your question?
No, not quite.
Because there is a time limit, but I will allow you to.
Okay, I'm almost done.
Exceeded,
Thank
so.
you. I am almost done because I consider this all obviously very important. Even more to what I just said, I now emphatically repeat what I presented in person on the 5th of June council meeting right here, speaking from this very desk here. It is respectfully requested that the City of Westmount place a moratorium upon any rezoning initiatives that might affect quality of life in or near Victoria Village, in particular relating to parking and traffic management. That said moratorium be maintained for the duration of a rigorous independent study of likely impacts resulting from any and all such rezoning initiatives foreseen by the city. And hereby I end, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Monsieur Le Greffier, est-ce que vous avez des commentaires sur... I mean, I just want to reiterate the 45-day is prescribed by law. Ou Madame la DG, est-ce qu'on a quelque chose à ajouter? Do we want to add anything to this?
Oui, si je peux juste ajouter, il y a eu une erreur. Il y a eu 2 avis avec 2 dates différentes. On a republié un avis cet après-midi à 13h45 à l'effet qu'il y avait 2 journées de registre cette semaine.
Okay, so I guess I would, I don't know if Councillor Peart has anything that he wants to add to this. This is an issue that has been discussed by council. I was on the council that first made the changes to this bylaw. This was very, very clearly to address the issue of the unknowns that were coming with the MUHC and the super hospital at the time, and some of the concerns around the lack of doctors' offices that were planned within the MUHC when it was first opened. We have also lifted, I'm not sure if you were aware, but there was a cap on restaurants in the Victoria Village. That cap has also been lifted. That was, didn't receive any feedback, I don't believe, on that one. And that had been put into place years ago to address the same issue of noise and parking and nighttime activity and things like that. But this one is the buildings. I know that there had been some letters published in the paper that were talking about that this is financially motivated by council somehow. That's often something I get accused of, which has never been the case. But also that it was new development. This is not new development. This is lifting a restriction on some buildings. None of it is on the ground story. It would all be second story. It is lifting restrictions on buildings that already exist. So there is no new building going on here. This is also a restriction that does not exist in other places. We don't have it anywhere else, obviously, in the city, and you won't find it. You won't find it around Saint-Justin, where there is residential housing. You won't find it around other hospitals, and I think, and it's certainly around Green Avenue, you don't have these restrictions. And when our citizens were asked, as Councillor Peart referred to, they were overwhelmingly in support of this. So, well, we'll move to the next question. But we don't have any flexibility on the timing. That's prescribed in the law. Next question.
Jeremy Cooperstock, 436 Strathcona. Madam Mayor, councillors, I won't repeat verbatim all the text that I sent you. I understand that there's been some errata in terms of what was reported in the Westmount Independent with regard to the public consultation that took place on May the 9th. I don't know who was present at that consultation. The Westmount Independent reported that the only 2 residents affected were the Westheimers, and they indicate they were not at that public consultation. So I don't even know who... You were at the public consultation, I believe?
We were here at the meeting for council, but never at the public. We never heard about it.
So this goes, I think, to a central question of communication from the city. And I'm equally to blame. I did not take notice of any of the forms of communication by the city announcing the draft bylaw, announcing the public consultation, and even the registry until I was informed by another neighbor on Grosvenor, a former neighbor on Grosvenor. So I think there are probably many residents of the area who are not up to speed on draft bylaws and consultations taking place. And I don't have a magic wand solution, but clearly communication is an issue of letting the citizenry know of important items such as this.
That's a fair, we will aim to address that. And get people. Do you want to address that as well? I mean,
Well,
We
should
can-
I,
we can al-
let me continue perhaps and just touch on the various
okay, so
aspects.
that's not the
Yeah,
end
that's
of your
just a
question.
framing of what took place as preamble. Now, I don't have any strong opinions one way or the other regarding whether this change to the bylaw should go ahead, but I do know that it was something that was in the books since 2014. And clearly, it is a contentious issue that has a lot of people feeling strongly about it one way or the other. Given that there was already discussion at the public consultation or proposal that the city undertake some form of impact study on how traffic, how parking, how public safety may be affected by a change in the zoning in this regard, I think it behooves the council to demonstrate attention to the needs and the concerns of citizenry and undertake such a study to let us know so that the citizenry can make informed decisions as to, well, which way should we be going on this? Is it going to have impact? What kind of impact? Will it be greater or lesser impact in terms of parking space, in terms of safety, in terms of congestion and traffic going through our streets, to have doctors' offices added as opposed to other forms of commerce? I don't know. I don't know what the city has undertaken in that respect, but communicating what the city is doing and freezing the registry while that takes place to demonstrate. I understand there's the 45-day rule. I'm sure council can find a creative way to say, okay, we really need to have an impact study before this races ahead. There are creative ways that can be addressed. But the other issue that I don't think has been taken into account here is that if there's a concern for bringing back doctors into Westmount and they weren't able to come in because of zoning issues, I note that there already exists in, I do have Zone C72409, the empty commercial properties between St. Catherine and Tupper on the north and south, and Atwater and Wood on the east and west, is already zoned for medical offices and doctors' offices. And that is very underutilized right now. It's within Westmount, and certainly that's a space where doctors and medical offices could be encouraged to go in, if that really is the driving factor. So I think in the interest of transparency, in the interest of letting the citizenry know that council takes residents' needs and concerns seriously, given that there's been a request for an impact study to be undertaken, why not have that? And freeze the registry until that, given that this is middle of summer. I don't know, again, turnout at that consultation meeting, maybe a real meaningful consultation is necessary so that the population here is convinced that council is listening to what citizens' concerns are. Thank you.
I think Councillor Peart wants to weigh in. I would go back to the survey that we did that we encouraged all residents to participate in, and that had overwhelming support for this type of initiative. And it doesn't mean that doctors' offices are going in there. It's just lifting. It doesn't mean that there's all of a sudden 50 new, wouldn't it be great if there were 50 GPs that wanted to serve Westmount citizens? Because there's not. I don't have a GP. I'm sure there's probably lots of people around this table that don't actually have a GP. So I don't think there's this mad rush for doctors to come to Westmount. But what we are doing is lifting the restriction that if you were a speech therapist and you're working with kids, we have 12 kids or 12 schools in this community. If you're a speech therapist, you currently cannot open an office because you fall under medical clinics. You
can south of St. Catherine.
Yeah, but you can't in an empty building. You can't if there's an empty vacant spot on Victoria and you want kids to be able to walk from certain schools, or you're close to a metro. Not everything is dictated by cars as well. I mean, you're right next to Vendôme Metro. It's a highly accessible area by public transportation.
But we don't know the impact, and that's what I think we really need to hear about.
Okay, and again, we are not adding any buildings. There's no footprint change here. What we are doing is lifting a restriction, like we did on restaurants. We are lifting a restriction on what can go in there. What we've also hear from other doctors is that they're limited in where they can move, and their rent can get sort of hijacked on their rent a little bit because the landlord knows they can't move anywhere else if they want to stay within this community. I think generally speaking, a lot of people would say they want speech therapists in the community. They want to be able to see a podiatrist. They want to be able to see a GP within, it's not typical, and as if you were, one of the public consultations where there were some doctors here were saying, typically people actually like us and want us to be in their community. And so this for them they really were quite taken aback by this. And one of them is like a real leader in our community who runs that I've spoken with, who has written to me about this at length, is he runs a big family medicine clinic. And this isn't, I just think it's an unnecessary measure at this point. And all of council, it was unanimously supported by council. And I understand the progression. I understand. I hear you on the public perception. It's something we will talk about in terms of communication. We can and we will do better on that. So I don't know, Councillor Peart, do you want to add anything to that?
Maybe I'll start backwards just on the communication. We can always do better on communication. But let's just recap though. It goes out on the website, but it means you have to know to go to the website. But it goes out in the email blast, which goes to anybody who is signed up for the Westmount e-newsletter gets that as well. If you happen to be on social media, we blast it out on social media as well. Again, there's always opportunities to do better, but it's not, we haven't been silent on this measure.
So we proactively gave the story to Lorraine Sweeney to cover as well, because we knew that it would be an issue for some people.
I know we're spending a lot of time talking about the clinics, but if you just take the clinics out of it, if you reframe the whole discussion as not being a change, but rather a reversion, we're reverting back to 2013. Mm-hmm. In 2013, for whatever reasons, our predecessors thought there was going to be a problem. Right or wrong, they made a change, they made a bylaw, and the fears that motivated those bylaws didn't materialize. I suspect there wasn't a material change. There was a gradual change, of course, as with traffic everywhere in the city, and with parking restrictions and parking pressures everywhere in the city. It was gradual, but it wasn't a market change that happened because the MUHC opened and there wasn't a rush of clinics. Now, on the other side, on the operations side, or at least the administrative side for the city, it became unmanageable. There's a quota, and if you went down to the urban planning department and asked them, how many clinics do we have? They really couldn't tell you, because what was a clinic in one place might not be, depending on who was counting in one of the buildings on the corner of, like the northwest corner of Sherbrooke and Maisonneuve, Sherbrooke and Claremont. It was kind of loosey-goosey as to how many clinics are in there. Clinics would merge, they would separate. It became unmanageable at the administrative level. And so what would happen is, as the mayor was saying before, because we had this hard ceiling, and because the urban planning department was unable to manage it, it just meant that there was a hard lock whether or not we were at 33, 34, 36, or 38 when the cap was 35. So it just wasn't working. And so to revert back to the way it was, which is the way that it is everywhere, where there isn't a special dispensation with a prediction for medical clinics, we said, we have a lot of empty spaces, commercial spaces here. Let's take out that restriction and see what happens. And that restriction, as the mayor said, I don't expect there's going to be a flood.
They don't exist. The doctors don't exist.
A flood, but we have to. When we recognize that we've made a law or a regulation that doesn't make sense, we should have the courage to back up and say, you know what, it didn't work. Let's do something different. And like I said before, we're not proposing anything new. The impact study that you're talking about exists because you just have to revert back to the case in 2013.
As you both made excellent points, and as I stated at the outset, I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other about this, but I do feel strongly that being sensitive to the expressions of concern by
Yep.
the community is critically important. And for the council to be putting this through in the summer when it seems like a vast majority of people who are concerned about it had no idea what was going on, and there's been a request for an impact study, and I'm sorry, but going back to what it was in 2013 and saying, well, that study was done then, times have changed. And a new study looking at the present realities and what the impact will be of changes now, maybe there will be no changes, but at least commissioning that study and having those data out there for the community to view and consider, I think would demonstrate a lot of concern by council and put people's minds at ease.
So I take your point, and I don't want to be combative on this, but a study was done in 2013. It predicted a change.
Yeah,
It didn't happen.
Discussed that already.
No,
Right?
no,
Okay.
no,
It's a
no,
different
but I'm saying-
time. It's a different time.
No, what I'm trying to say is a study was done in 2013 predicting that there was going to be a change, a dramatic change in traffic
From the hospital.
from the hospital, but it didn't happen. So you have to question the validities of these studies that predicted something back then which didn't occur. If we were to do a study today, would
But
you?
what is the study also based on? Is it based on, like, we don't know who's going to be in an office. It could be a therapist that sees one person an hour. It could be a lawyer that sees 5 people, 5 people a day. It could be, we don't really know what's in there. You can't really base a study on, not all doctors have the same number of patients. Pediatricians see more kids. Typically, the Melville Clinic used to be, chock-a-block. I don't know which pediatrician you guys use, but like if you went into the Melville Clinic, there used to, prior to COVID, there'd be 25 runny noses and coughing children all lined up, right? From 8 to 9, and then they'd be gone as of 9 o'clock, and then they went back to 3 patients an hour. So it would be very difficult to predict what's going to go in there. I think what we're lifting a restriction that we don't feel is necessary in that area anymore. But I do take your note on the communications aspect, and I know a lot of people aren't going to open an email that goes to, there's the people in this room might, but beyond that, not everybody reads with bated breath what's going to happen on our e-blast with updated public consultations. And a lot of people read the Westmount Independent, not everybody does. So it's finding ways to better communicate. And I think a lot of that needs to be done as well by surveys, proactive surveys for people to get, then we have a real feel of what residents want as opposed to going via public consultation, right? It's not necessarily, people don't want to come to, it's a beautiful day out. I'm sure you didn't want to come to City Council tonight, but I appreciate that you did. And we will definitely discuss how we can better communicate the public consultations.
Thank you. And I would just repeat my appeal that council consider freezing until a study, because there are ways to parameterize studies and to put in variables and consider different models that could be considered. And given that there are people who are very upset about this racing ahead, that council takes some time on this.
I think it should also be, there's a lot of people that are very, very pleased to see any restriction, allowing some further flexibility, allowing more people to buy a coffee at Myriad for a lot of people is a good thing, because we want to support our local commercial sector, and that takes people in the buildings above, right? I mean, when we saw during COVID the impact of, an office tower like Westmount Square, the impact that has being empty on Green Avenue is enormous. While the people still live in the condo towers, the commercial tower is where you buy the lunch, where you buy the and that impact, I think everybody has seen that impact from the pandemic. So it's trying to find the balance, but I definitely, we will look at how we can better communicate our public consultations.
All the more reason to put out the data. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Hi, Penny Arsenault, 4700 St. Catherine. I'm just here to talk about the Marianopolis artificial turf. I just have a few concerns with it, and then I have a question.
Okay.
I think there are multi-level problems with artificial turf, and I know that people have been coming out and saying organic infill, and everybody's jumping on this, and I don't have a lot of people behind me against artificial turf for some reason, but the infill really isn't the problem. It used to be the problem when they used to recycle tires to
yeah.
use it. I mean, that was absolutely a toxic thing that we were throwing kids into. So it's no longer that. Now it's defined as organic. So people like that sound, but there's actually no description or no definition of what organic is for an infill. I mean, it's not like food where there's actually a certification to be called, I mean, organic, arsenic is organic, but you wouldn't want it in the infill. So that's just one thing. The problem never really was the infill other than the tires. It's really that the blades of grass are made of plastic fibers, and then they're coated with PFSAs, which are now found to be carcinogenic. There's also the backing, which is plastic, and there's also a foam insulating pad underneath, which is made of polyethylene and urethane. And you're taking up green space to basically cover almost 2 acres of property with plastic in a time where I find that it's, there's heat islands and we're trying to combat climate change. I'm sure people have noticed. So it's a bit of a heat island. I think the artificial turf is not as water absorbent as real grass. It has to be cleaned and it has to be disinfected because it's not like a living, growing thing. So I just feel like that there's a lot of kind of environmental problems with it. Also, I went up to Marianopolis, which is lovely. It's an absolutely lovely little field. It's tiny. It's about half the size, I think, right, of what you would have to expand. And I kind of walked along where you would have to expand it to, and there's an awful lot of stuff that has to be done along the way, like cutting some really beautiful trees. I mean, I counted 13, estimating how big the field would be. And then, of course, there would be probably stands and anyways, whatever. So these are all my problems. But Département Santé Publique Montréal came out and said they were going to revise their recommendations on artificial turf, because previously they had said, yes, there are health impacts, there are environmental impacts, but it's offset by the fact that it's good for kids to run around. Now they've said that they will review and come out with new definitions by the end of the year. So I'm just wondering, will Westmount wait until they come out with their new recommendations to proceed?
Okay, do you want me to answer, or do you
Sure.
have more that you want to add to that before
Yeah, no,
we
I know,
answer?
I'm
Because I think a lot of council would like to, and I know you are firmly committed to helping us often in the city with initiatives like the monarch butterflies and different initiatives throughout the city. So I appreciate your commitment to that. And we will certainly take into consideration anything that Santé Publique would take into account. So we are faced with a challenge. The age-old challenge in Westmount is that we don't have enough sports fields to meet the needs of the residents that are wanting to play. We have about 1,000 kids that play soccer. A field should only have about 20 hours of play on it a week for it to be able to be maintained and not to be watered excessively and things like that. And so grass, as we know, takes a lot of maintenance, takes a lot of water. So the numbers they keep growing. We also lose a lot of kids to other communities. So we lose kids to Outremont. We're one of the only municipalities. I believe we might actually be the only municipality that does, Côte-des-Neiges NDG is putting one in Kent Park, but they have several others throughout NDG. And so when this was, we have looked at this, and we have also looked at the evolution of turf. We've seen schools in the community put in the ones with the which is filled with coconut shells as opposed to rubber tires. So it has evolved. Is it perfect? No, but I think the numbers and the need is clearly there for an additional sports field. And we had there was no desire of council to put a turf field in the WAG or Murray Hill or Westmount Park because they really are separate. And Marianopolis, we've been working with Marianopolis on different partnerships. And this is a partnership that they would really like as well, because they would like their soccer team to be able to be competitive and not to train on the Brebeuf turf, right, which they need. So there's also no plans to make it any larger than the actual field. So the stands and things like that, we would not add in, because I think what we're trying to do is allow for more, in particular, youth sports in the city with the highest or the best available option in terms of a turf that would be high quality.
Right.
So
I'm just going to put one more point in there, because with other cities putting in more AstroTurf, or it's not AstroTurf, sorry, artificial turf, it cannot be recycled. There's nowhere that's recycling this stuff, and there are pictures and videos, and you can go on.
I've watched the
It's
both
not being
sides.
recycled.
Yeah.
It is mountains and mountains of plastic and PFAs that are just being dumped, and it's an environmental problem. And I think the kids need to exercise now, but they also need to inherit an earth with a fair amount of green space when they grow up as well. But I forget my last point.
So we will take into, and this is early on in the process. So when we said spring, I was probably being ambitious to try and get some things done. But it is a project that we would like to see going forward in a partnership with Marianopolis, and to really use the research that's out there and find the best, the least environmental impact, which will have the most, in particular, kids moving and playing, and having Westmount be able to have these programs. Because if you look at the junior field right now, I mean, that field is very well cared for, very well managed. It's dirt. It is complete
There's no
dust bowl.
interest or motivation in teaming up with using the field the way it is at Marianopolis. You could put the little kids, you could put 5 to 8 year olds there.
It
on a
still
beautiful little
doesn't, the
field.
numbers are too, we will destroy that field. That field will be destroyed within a
Right.
year, like we destroy all our other fields every year.
I'm sorry, I'm asking too many questions. But
So,
would it not?
anyway, but I would be very happy if you want to write me an email. I would be very happy to set up a meeting with you to sit down and
Thanks.
hear some of your other
Thank you.
concerns. Does anyone else want to comment? And yes, the field at Marianopolis is slightly smaller than a regulation size field, so it would be a little bit bigger than what's there now. That's not being used right now. If you saw that, that's an overgrown field. Yeah.
And it's also just about half the size of regulation field, so.
I think it's a little bit bigger than half, 3/4, yeah. But I would be, as I said, I'd be happy to talk to you about this. Mr. Fretz.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. John Fretz, 473 Lansdowne. I'm glad to see you got the windows open. Showing or am I mistaken? They weren't boarded up last time.
Yeah, there's a very long and thorough restoration project of restoring the windows that were there.
It's
The
the first time
original
I've
windows,
seen-
and it's right down to the original paint color as well that has
Okay.
been matched.
Well, this goes, a while ago, the council passed a motion to engage in discussions with Marianopolis with a view to turning this field into a synthetic surface. And in fact, we measured it. It's 2/3 of official length. It's about 60 yards. I think the regular field is about 100 yards. It's in impeccable condition. It's just like it looks wonderful. But my question is this: we've entered into this avenue. If the council would graciously accord me this, I'd like to know: have you personally seen this field?
Yes.
No, I know you have, Mayor, but have
Okay.
all the councilors? You've gone up there, you've seen it. Because that's sort of good news and it's bad news, because it's in such good condition. And Madam Mayor, you said yourself, you're looking for, it'd be good for preteens. You know, it's not an official, if you want to get adults in there, you're going to have people standing around. Why we haven't approached them, we have a field down here with a bald surface. Why, and if Marianopolis is copacetic with us, why wouldn't have it approach them too? We could be using this field right now.
So Marianopolis' field also doesn't meet their own needs in terms of they can't run a regulation game on that field because it's not standard size. So all of our kids as of 11 are playing on a full-size field. So it doesn't meet, I don't know what the statistic on that, but probably like 60% of the players' needs in terms of a field. You could run.
But the kids do play on it. I haven't really seen them, but right now it's in great condition.
Because nobody's playing on it.
The what?
They're not playing on it. No, kids are not playing on that field.
And we couldn't negotiate with them to use it for our purposes, or?
Well, we are, but we want to have an official size field so that we can use, for all ages can play on it, to make it a universal field.
Well, all the kids can play on it right now. I don't know what the hesitancy is, but I mean, if you, I'm just saying is that we have a problem down here, and we have a solution up there, and I don't really see a great deal of initiative. It's a beautiful field. Kids play on it. They're not really playing on it now. And we're willing to go up there because eventually we will if we turn it into a synthetic surface. So if you all have been up there, I must say I'm a little bit disappointed with the lack of utility of this field. And it really is just
currently we don't
size.
we don't have access to this field. Agreement will be going forward when and if it comes to fruition as a turf field. And it goes back to the hours of use on a grass field. They're very limited. I mean, the numbers vary. Some say 15, some say max 20 per week per field, and we're on it. I think the number, I'd have to look at my notes, but I think we're using our fields about 90. So it's just, yes, this is adding to our roster of playing fields.
Yeah,
okay? But I think we have several questions online, so I'm gonna have to move on unless you have a further on the field.
Thank you. I just think something could have been done with this.
Okay, thank you for your feedback on that.
Hi, Dorothy Lipovenko, York Street. I was not going to come here tonight to ask this question. Madam Mayor, would you permit me, as I'm listening about the medical offices, would you just let me throw this out because something occurred to me? How often or who disposes of the medical waste that is generated from doctors' offices? Is it picked up by the regular garbage people, or do they have their own trucks that have to pass by on a daily or bi-weekly, a couple of times a week to pick it up?
I believe that certainly the medical office on Green Avenue at Mount Pleasant and Sherbrooke, that has lots of dentists where they produce a lot of medical waste. That is a private contractor that does that. So there is a whole regulation around medical waste, yes.
Okay, so they'd have to have private contractors, so that would add more traffic.
If you were a speech therapist, you wouldn't have any medical waste, or a psychologist, or
if you're a pediatrician or a dentist or anybody else.
I don't know. I can get you the answer as to who.
I was just
at
curious.
The Melville Clinic, I don't know who services them in terms of waste.
I just thought about it, but traffic.
Okay.
Now I'll ask my question why I came here tonight. It's been almost 10 weeks, May 8th, that I discovered that the electronic door opener at the greenhouse exterior doors is not working. I have emailed, I have been in touch with Councillor Roux because she's the library commissioner. 10 weeks. Those are the only doors accessible to the library now while the library's main entrance is under renovation. If you unless you use the park entrance, which has got stairs, so if you've got mobility problems, you're out of luck. I'd like to know why. It takes time to write emails. It takes time. It's not my job to chase people.
No.
I've called Public Works, I've spoken to Councillor or emailed Councillor Roos several times. I've spoken to the head of the library at least twice about this. Do you remember Bruce and Louis would have called this an easy win?
I know, but
a door opener is the easy, and this predates the blues.
I know. So did Public Works let you know that they have ordered the piece and it's on back order?
I just told them after a month went by, I called them and they said they'd pass my concern along. But why is it my responsibility to follow up? We have an accessibility commissioner. You put stuff in. Do you ever think about how services are used by the people that you're aiming for?
Every day, all day long.
Well, then why in the world has this now gone on for 10 weeks?
Because the piece that is needed for the opening, the mechanical piece on the door, is on back order.
For how long? Anybody know?
I don't know the exact date. Councillor Roux, did they let you know? It's Public Works has ordered it, and it's on back order.
And there's no prospective date?
I would imagine there is a prospective date. I do not have the slip in front of me as to where the piece is on the door.
Who installs it? Is it Public Works?
It would be our buildings team, yes.
Okay, so basically, with them on strike...
No, it's our management is doing the very best that they can to install everything. So we're waiting. I know for a fact that we are waiting for the piece for that door. We went to great lengths to make that building universally accessible by adding the ramp in there as well. And now without the door functioning properly, it is that is problematic.
Yep. Especially if you've got a stroller you're trying to maneuver in.
Yeah, a stroller,
an
a walker,
armload
a
of
wheelchair.
books, walker,
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
All right. So
we're well
looking at
aware, and so is our building. Our head of buildings is very aware of this issue.
But it's interesting that it took me to, I don't even know how long it had been on the fritz. I only discovered it May the 8th on a Friday morning, because that's when I usually go to the library. But it would be interesting if it was installed, and how long has it been on not working? Does anybody know?
I can get you that
It's not,
information
I
as
mean,
well.
at this point, it's a useless question, but it would have been nice if the Accessibility Commissioner had made sure it was working. Thank you for your time. It's nice to know that they've ordered the part.
They have ordered the part. It is on back order. We are experiencing this with, not just these types of parts. Swings that used to take about 6 weeks to get now take on average 52 weeks to get. So there are, that's having an impact on a lot of things that our citizens use and enjoy, and this is unfortunately one of them as well.
It is, because you can't get in any, and those doors are heavy. The interior functions just fine, but the exterior doesn't.
Yeah. And as I said, we went to great lengths to make the building universally accessible by redesigning the floor plan.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Okay, we'll start with the questions online. Oh, we have one more, Mr. Dufour. Are we at our 45-minute mark? We're at over an hour, so do we go to our... Well, I will take your question, but there are questions online. Have largely been answered, so on va décider après. Mr. Dufour, go on.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Richard Dufour from 22 Anwath. Good evening. I'm kind of at the same time, but sorry, before I say that, 22 Anwath, but I did used to live on Winchester, and I did live on de Maisonneuve near Roslyn, so I'm very aware of the situation in that neighborhood. Malgré ça, despite that, I kind of like to ask the question to council and also collectively to the community why we are spending so much energy debating parking and parking issues. There are so many more pertinent environmental issues that I wish that our community would focus on, including City Council. And all you hear in the Westmount Independent, whenever there's any kind of debate, it's always about parking or traffic. We live in a community that is very accessible by the metro. We chose to live in that area. We knew what the restraints were in terms of parking. Let's deal with it. Let's deal with it. That's how I say. And I encourage and in terms of the whole referendum or petition process, I read the paper, I check the online, there's no surprise there. It's very public, it's very transparent, there's no hidden agenda, in my opinion. It's all there. I just follow if you don't read the newspaper, you don't check your emails, if you subscribe to the email service, you can't fault City Council for that, in my opinion.
Okay.
Tandem to that, in terms of so my question to the community, to Westmount is what can we do to focus on greater environmental issues and not necessarily be spending so much time on parking? That's my question number one. Question number two, in terms of the synthetic grass, as an environmentalist, I understand some of the issues or concerns that people have with that. I was, though, present at a city council meeting when a parent and actually a pediatrician came who were part of the Westmount Soccer Association, who pleaded to have a artificial turf field and explained the reasons for it. And at one point, we have to make compromises. And by the way, the artificial grass is permeable. If we were talking about it being a heat sink, it is permeable. Perhaps the suggestion is to kind of counterbalance the artificial grass is maybe to convert another part of the city that has a hard surface to a grassy area as a trade-off. Perhaps we could take some of the parking spots in Westmount and turn them into grass fields. I'm joking, of course, but anyway, food for thought.
Plant more trees.
Yeah, to offset. That way there's, something for people who want to play grass. I mean, we're not talking about putting artificial grass on the entire parks. It's one area, 60 by 80 meters. It's not huge, relatively speaking. So anyway, perspective.
Thank you for your feedback. I think we will keep the other questions. I don't know if we want to address them now. I mean, I think they're all on the same subject, right? Because we're well over time in terms of the time limit on question period for the first question period. Est-ce qu'on commence avec les questions en ligne? On va répondre assez vite.
On peut le faire maintenant. On peut le faire à la deuxième période de questions si vous le souhaitez. Par ailleurs, je vous propose tout de même de répondre à ces questions.
Okay, but then I think some people probably want to leave, actually, so we can let's do them actually very quickly right now.
Okay, so we received 5 questions. First question from Mr. David Searle. Whereas the City of Westmount's elected officials have repeated on several occasions their intention to do what they can to fight climate change, whereas the world is facing ever-mounting climate issues, and our city has witnessed very strong storms and poor air quality from dramatic wildfires in the summer of 2023 alone. Whereas the City of Westmount emits significant greenhouse gases and precious labor to cut grass in little used areas of the city. Whereas uncut grass can serve to increase biodiversity, beauty, and health in our city, could the City of Westmount proceed to an annual instead of weekly cutting of little used green spaces such as the Dorchester Median and the grass surrounding City Hall, to name a few?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Searle, and I think he is aware that we have delayed the cutting of our grass till June 1st with essentially zero, no, I think everybody accepts that now. Whereas, a couple years ago, we would be getting very negative feedback on that. So I think there's probably an opportunity to look at our cutting practices, especially since we have now gone another, I guess, almost 4 weeks now without the majority of our green spaces being cut, that we can look at those. So thank you for your question on that, and that'll be something that we'll talk about with our Public Works team. Next question.
Next question from Madame Marjorie Bouzari. Dear Mayor and Councillors, I was unaware about this issue until just yesterday. Your website e-tools are inaccessible to me. With a draft bylaw having such an impact on parking, could you consider better communication channels to inform your residents? My question is, what's the daily impact on parking? Where will the additional parking be provided and where? Has this assessment been done? If there's a time for another question, will the city revenue stream be impacted directly from this proposed bylaw change, or will it make no difference? Is it a private or public clinics that would be allowed? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. So we addressed a lot of this before in terms of parking, and this is not adding any units or buildings to the commercial sector of Victoria Village. It is just lifting the cap, so it's difficult to say, who would be in these offices, or indeed if anyone will actually take up the space in these offices. And it would not be dictating public or private. Many of them would be, there's many things that fall under the category of medical clinics, so we wouldn't be dictating that. I think that's the gist of this, is to get out of the overly restrictive, because it was, as I said, put in place at a time to deal with an issue that was that we were facing, the unknown of the MUHC. So next question.
Question from Van Essayen. As the destiny of Victoria Village materializes as an important satellite of the MUHC Children's Hospital, some Westmounters are concerned about an increase of patients scrambling for parking places. Could you offer some insight to city project planned to mitigate the scarcity of parking places, especially for those streets Palo Alto, California standard was a community similar to Westmount, aging population, stagnant commercial activity, and institutional burdens. Their solution, build 3 parking facilities in town with free parking for 2 hours. A dramatic transformation resulted. We need to learn from others, and by investing in infrastructure that will assist shops and services to be successful.
Thank you. I think we've addressed all of this. Do you want to add anything else in terms of parking? And I mean, it's not an extension of the MUHC. As I said, it is lifting certain restrictions that are in place in the Victoria Village, and in terms of adding parking buildings or parking lots. Certainly, I don't think anyone has any desire to add any surface parking lots in the city of Westmount. And this is, as we had discussed as well, this is heavily, is very accessible by public transportation, we have Bixi stands on Victoria that are highly used. So I think we've addressed a lot of these issues. So in interest of time, we'll go to the next question.
Next
you
question
wanted to add anything?
from Madame Francisca Carrieri. Your draft bylaw is raising concerns about its impact on traffic and parking and overall street safety. As a resident of Grosvenor, I would like to ask you to please put a freeze on the draft bylaw 1601 and share with all of us more info and data on traffic impacts.
So again, there is a 45-day time limit. We are at the maximum of that 45-day time limit. We have 2 days where you can sign the registry. If you would like this to go to a referendum, where they will have, then we would have to decide if we move to the referendum stays on this. And again, it's not adding any buildings. It's not adding any more addresses. It's not adding. It's the buildings that are currently there.
Finally, the last question from Madame Marina Britsky is the same question as the.
Yeah, I think it's a copy and paste of the same question.
Yes.
So I don't know, Councillor Peart, do you want to add anything else to this, or any of the other councillors want to add to this that all voted in favor of this? Yes, Councillor Aronson.
The council takes the concerns of residents extremely seriously. Trying to prevent an additional or added problem by not fixing an existing problem is no way to govern. If we find that by removing the moratorium on additional medical services in Victoria Village, it becomes clear that more attention needs to be paid to prioritize resident parking, then that is the problem we will solve. So rather than spend considerable amounts of energy and time fighting amongst ourselves as to whether or not it is a good idea or a bad idea to allow more doctors and medical services in the area, let us go forward with a measure that will increase our community's vitality and our economic development, making sure that we have all of those office spaces as full as they can be, because it does good for our community to have them. And if and when we find that the additional offerings are attracting so many people from outside of our community that choose, for reasons I can't imagine, knowing that they can't find parking spaces, to drive down there anyway, instead of taking the metro or the bus or a Bixi or a taxi cab, at that point, we will look at addressing specifically the problem of making sure that all of our residents who need a place to park have a place to park. So we've got two separate problems here that need individual attention. Let's not clog up the system we're trying to fix one problem with making the argument that the only fix is to create a different problem. Let's address both of them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else before we move on? I think that's the end. Councillor Kez.
Just, I know in my district there is no cap. In District 8, there's no cap. So there was, I'm sure, a fear that there would be so many medical offices that there would be no parking, but it didn't prove to be the case. I also say I voted not against it because I also figured it's commercial property. What's to stop a law firm from going in from 10 employees? What? It could be, it's already zoned commercial. So we're lifting this cap. If it does prove that there's a problem with parking, I think that could be addressed. We could do something about that when the time occurs. Think we're too worried for something that hasn't happened yet. It never happened on Green Avenue. It never happened on Sherbrooke. It never happened on Clark. It never happened on Dorchester. So let's see.
Okay.
That's all, my 2 cents.
Is that the end of the questions?
Yes.
OK. On va commencer avec l'adoption de l'ordre du jour. Conseiller Gallery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the agenda of the regular council sitting of July 17, 2023 be adopted with the removal of the following item. Point 08, creation and appointment, City of Westmount's 150th Anniversary Committee.
Okay, thank you. And that is not because the city will not turn 150. That is because there are some additions that we want to make to that committee and some having to meet some of the members that we weren't able to do because of some vacations. So seconder on that will be Councillor Roux. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Item number 5, confirmation of minutes. Councillor Gallery again.
Je propose que le procès-verbal de la séance ordinaire du Conseil tenue le 4 juillet 2023 soit approuvé.
Merci beaucoup. En appuyant, c'est Conseiller Bostock. All in favor? Carried. Item number 6, les rapports au Conseil. 6.1, correspondance. Les documents suivants sont déposés. Règlement 04-047-249 de la Ville de Montréal, règlement modifiant le plan d'urbanisme de la Ville de Montréal 04047, règlement 04-047-250 de la Ville de Montréal, règlement modifiant le plan d'urbanisme de la Ville de Montréal, règlement 04-047-251 de la Ville de Montréal, règlement modifiant le plan d'urbanisme de la Ville de Montréal, certificat de publication pour la vie publique concernant l'entrée en vigueur des règlements 04-047-249, 04-047-250 et 04-047-251. 6.2, le procès verbal du comité plénier. Councillor Gallery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The minutes of the General Committee of Council meeting held on June 19th, 2023 are tabled and are available on the city's website.
Thank you. Item number 7, adoption of a policy, constitution and management committees. Councillor Shammy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas pursuant to Section 70 of the Cities and Towns Act, the Council may appoint permanent or special committees composed of as many of its members as it may deem necessary to supervise the administration of the several civic departments for which they are respectively appointed, and to manage such business as it may be by bylaw or resolution assigned to them. And whereas the mission of a committee is to inform the decision-making of council by issuing recommendations when and where appropriate, and whereas the Directeur Général recommends the creation of a policy on the constitution and the management of committees to provide framework for the constitution of these committees to ensure a transparent mechanism for the appointing or replacing resident members, and to establish rules for the operation of committees, I move, Madam Mayor, that the policy, constitution, and management committees be adopted.
Thank you very much. A seconder on this will be Councillor Aronson. Does anyone want to add further comments to this? This is working on the framework of our committees. Some obviously have a legal framework within the city, and some are committees that we strike for issues that are important and need to be moved forward. Councillor Aronson is seconding. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Item number 8 again is that's removed. Sorry, 9 again is Councillor Shammy, modification of the working conditions and remuneration of management personnel.
Whereas, Madam Mayor, on April 1st, 2019, the Municipal Council adopted the working conditions and remuneration of management personnel. Whereas the Human Resources Department recommends a one-time amendment to Annex A of the working conditions and remuneration of management personnel, namely an economic increase of 4%. I move that Council approve an economic increase of 4% instead of the 2.75% provided for in the working conditions and remuneration of management personnel for the City of Westmount.
Thank you. A seconder on this will be Councillor D'Amico. This is obviously in relation to, do you want to comment on this? Or?
Just inflation adjustments.
Inflation, but this obviously would be across the board throughout the city in terms of our employees, and not, this is something that we would look at across the board. All in favor? Carried. Item number 10, adoption of the Information Technology Master Plan, ITMP. Councillor Shammy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whereas the Director of Digital Information Technologies recommends the adoption of the Information Technology Master Plan, ITMP, to modernize the City of Westmount's computer systems and have a concerted vision of the needs. And whereas the master plan is a strategic tool that identifies key priorities and directions for the efficient and sustainable use of technology within the city, I move, Madam Mayor, that the Information Technology Master Plan, ITMP 2023 to 2025, be now adopted.
Thank you. Councillor D'Amico would like to second. Any further comments?
No.
All in favor? Carried. Item number 11 is again Councillor Shammy, request for proposals, redesign of the city's Westmount website and implementation of a citizen portal,
Thank
which
you.
is very,
Important.
very timely considering some of the questions about how we communicate with our residents. Councillor Shammy.
I move, Madam Mayor, to authorize an expenditure in the amount of $61,386.19, including tax credits for the 2023 fiscal year for the redesign of the City of Westmount's website and the implementation of a citizen portal, and to award to 92543685 Quebec Inc., Blanco Design, the contract for this purpose in accordance with this proposal for a maximum amount of $108,990 plus taxes, the whole in conformity with the contractual documents of the request for proposals, and to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information included in the decision-making file number 2023-1966.
Thank you very much. A seconder on that will again be Councillor D'Amico. This is for redesign. Did you want to comment on this?
Yes, so this will be a possible game changer. What we're trying to do is we're trying to put everything almost into a phone so that the citizen has direct access to the services in a one-stop shop. So this is really revolutionary and will change the way things are happening. So I'm very enthusiastic about this.
Yeah, and obviously an updated way of, our tools have to constantly evolve, so this is one of the tools that we hope citizens will use more. All in favor? Aye. Carried. Item number 12 is Councillor Peart, modification to a contract, Bank of Hours for Professional Services, Architecture.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. I move that the contract awarded to Nadeau-Blondin-Lotti Architectes Incorporé for the Bank of Hours for Professional Services Architecture Resolution Number 2022-08-194 be modified and increased to a maximum amount of $281,970.44, including taxes. That an additional expenditure be authorized in the amount of $25,633.68, including taxes, for the Bank of Hours for Professional Services in Architecture with Nadeau-Blondin-Lotti Architectes Incorporé. To allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information included in decision-making files number 2022-1636 and 2023-1977.
Thank you very much. A seconder on this will be Councillor Gallery. Do you want to add any further?
Certainly. This architectural firm, they supply, it's a kind of a standing offer or an open contract that we have with them. They assist us on multiple projects across this city. So the smaller contracts where it's not really efficient to go out and get a tender for, I don't know, a stair repair or something like that.
Yeah.
So we have multiple projects running across the city. They've reached their maximum, and so we're topping it up, so to speak.
Okay. A seconder on this is Councillor Gallery. All in favor? Aye. Carried. Item 13 is again a modification to a contract, reconstruction of Mount Pleasant Avenue between Rosemont Crescent and Sherbrooke. This is for a slight increase in the cost, but we have to move the motion anyways.
Indeed. Thank you, Madame la Mairesse. I move that the contract awarded to Cojelac Inc. for the reconstruction of Mount Pleasant Avenue between Rosemount Crescent and Sherbrooke, resolution number 2023-04-98, be modified and increased to a maximum amount of $3,790,634.64, including taxes. That an additional expenditure be authorized in the amount of $54,856.87, including taxes, for the reconstruction of Mount Pleasant Avenue between Rosemount Crescent and Sherbrooke with Cojelac Inc. to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information included in the decision-making files number 2023-1875 and 2023-1976.
Thank you. Councillor Shammy is the councillor for the district. I'm sure would like to second. This is an increase in $54,000.
$54,000. Should point out.
Break it down?
Well, I won't break it down, but what I will say is often for large projects, other municipalities, they will build in a contingency. We don't do that in Westmount. Another municipality might build in a 5%, 10% contingency. What we do is we hold the line, and if there is an unforeseen condition, which is what happened here, then the contractor has to justify that expense, and it's not a presumed win for the contractor. Often with contingencies, they know that the budget's been allocated, and so it's a little bit easier to go ask for some money when you know the budget is out there. We do things a little bit differently, and I think it's better governance of the public funds. What happened in this case was that there was a underground conduit that didn't appear anywhere on any of our surveys, didn't appear in any of our historic documents. When they dug it up, they realized something was there, and so they had to make corrective measures. So this represents maybe 1.5% of the total value of the contract of the budget, which falls well within the norms for large construction projects.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Carried. Item number 14 is modification d'un contrat reconstruction de la ruelle entre Weardale Park et Clandeboye. Encore, c'est Councillor Peart.
I think you're noticing a trend tonight. I move that the contract awarded to Les Entreprises de Construction Ventec, Inc. for the reconstruction of the alley between Weardale Park and Clandeboye, resolution number 2023-06-169, be modified and increased to a maximum amount of $446,103, including taxes. That an additional expenditure be authorized in the amount of $48,864.38, including taxes, for the reconstruction of an alley between Weardale Park and Clandeboye with Les Entreprises de Construction Ventec, Inc., to allocate this expenditure in accordance with the financial information included in the decision-making files number 2023-1944 and, 2023-1975.
Thank you very much. A seconder on this will be Councillor Kez. Similar situation?
Similar situation, unforeseen circumstance. In this case, the percentage is higher as a percentage of the original contract, representing about 12%. In this case, is to when we're doing resurfacing projects, we don't know what we're going to get until we take off the asphalt and we see the condition of the concrete below. In this case, for the lanes, the concrete was in worse shape than expected, and so that meant that more concrete needs to be replaced. And so in this case, we need to fully excavate, transport, and dispose of the concrete, and that's what this extra is for.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Item 15, notice of motion bylaw 1604, further amending bylaw 726 concerning street traffic. Councillor Kez.
I give notice of the intention to submit for adoption at a subsequent meeting of council bylaw number 1604, entitled Bylaw Further Amending Bylaw 726 concerning street traffic. I table the draft of the said bylaw. The object of this bylaw is to increase the rates for parking violations. A copy of the draft bylaw is available for public consultation.
Thank you. And you want to comment on this?
Yeah.
And our discounted fines?
The fines for our parking violations have been low, and we're just bringing them up to par with the rest of the city of Montreal. Though the cost of these fines will most likely generate additional revenues for the city, it must be remembered that more importantly, and most importantly, it is hoped that the increase in the fines will discourage non-compliant behaviors and promote better parking management in our city, which has been shown that's the problem. So the aim is really to enforce compliance. So this is parking infractions.
Yep. All right. Thank you. We don't vote on that tonight. Tabling of the Planning Advisory Committee minutes. Councillor Peart, item number 16 for June 2023.
Thank you, Madame la Mairesse. I move that Council acknowledge and accept the minutes of the regular Planning Advisory Committee PAC meeting of June 2023, held on June 20th and June 22nd of 2023.
Thank you. A seconder is Councillor Gallery. Anything you want to highlight in there?
I will highlight that there were two items on this agenda for which I declared a conflict of interest, and so I recuse myself from the review and the analysis of those two files.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Gallery. All in favor? Carried. Item number 18 will actually be moved by Councillor Gallery because of that. Approval of site planning and architectural integration programs.
Yeah, we have to do 17 first.
Oh, 17. Oh, sorry. Tabling of the Planning Advisory Committee minutes, minor exemption. Councillor Peart.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Je propose que le Conseil prenne acte et accepte le dépôt du procès-verbal de l'Assemblée spéciale du Comité consultatif d'urbanisme, le CCU, portant sur les demandes de dérogation mineure tenues le 20 juin 2023.
Merci. A seconder on that is Councillor Gallery. Anything else you want to add to that?
This is the minutes, the PV that is associated with this particular minor exemption file.
Okay. Item 18 will be Councillor Gallery. Approval, all in favor, sorry, of 17? Aye. Carried. 18, approval of site planning and architectural integration programs, SPAIP. Councillor Gallery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the Municipal Council act on the recommendations of the Planning Advisory Committee, PAC, as set out in the minutes of the regular meeting of June 2023, and adopt for each of them the site planning and architectural integration programs, conditions for the issuance of a permit, as listed in items CCU 23-06.01 to CCU 23-06.03. CCU 23-06.05 to CCU 23-06.12, CCU 23-06.14 to CCU 23-06.19, CCU 23-06.22 to CCU 23-06.25, CCU 23-06.28, CCU 23-06.30, CCU 23-06.33, CCU 23-06.35 to CCU 23-06.38, CCU 23-06.42 to CCU 23-06.45, CCU 23-06.50 to CCU 23-06.53, CCU 23-06.55, and CCU 23-06.56 of the agenda of said meeting held on June 20th and June 22nd, 2023.
Thank you very much. A seconder on this will be Councillor Bostock.
And I'll recuse myself.
You can recuse yourself from
Je
vote.
comprends, Monsieur Peart, que vous vous récusez pour les points 18, 19 et 20. C'est ce que je comprends?
Juste 18, no?
Juste 18.
Juste 18?
Parce que je pense pas que...
Those are the minor.
OK. Donc, le point 18.
Or the denials.
Merci.
Okay. All in favor, except for Mr. Peart, who is recusing himself. Carried. Item number 19, denial of site planning and architectural integration program. Councillor Peart.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. I move that the Municipal Council act on the unfavorable recommendation of the Planning Advisory Committee, the PAC, as set out in the minutes of the regular meeting of June 2023, held on June 20th and June 22nd, 2023, in item CCU 23-06-47 of the agenda of said meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Gallery will second that. Do you want to add any further comments on this?
This one is not necessary. This is self-explanatory.
All in favor? Carried. Again, another denial of site planning and architectural integration program. Councillor Peart.
I move that the Municipal Council act on the unfavorable recommendation of the Planning Advisory Committee, the PAC, as set out in the minutes of the regular meeting of June 2023 and held on June 20th and June 22nd of 2023 in item CCU 23-06.04 of the agenda of said meeting.
Councillor Gallery will second that. Do you have any further comments on that one?
That is the follow-up to the, oh no, I'm sorry. That is also self-explanatory.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Carried. There is no new business. That is, il n'y a pas des affaires nouvelles sur l'agenda. There's no new business tonight. that will conclude that part of the meeting. If there's any other questions, we can do them now. Otherwise, the meeting will be adjourned. And we do not have an the beginning of August meeting. We are taking one meeting off in the summer, but we will have one August 21st, I believe, is the date. So any further questions or comments from the room? No? Est-ce qu'il y a des questions? Are there any questions online?
No questions online.
All right, the meeting is adjourned. Enjoy your summertime.